Carlucci is just 29 years old, and he is the senator-elect of the 38th District in the Hudson Valley. He's joining us tonight from Middletown. Senator-elect, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, okay, you are going to be the youngest member of the Senate, as I mentioned. What was it that made you decide that you would prefer to be a senator instead of Clarkstown clerk, which is what your current title is?
Well, as the town clerk, I consider the clerk the hub of local government, and I was dealing with state agencies every day, and I see them moving backwards at a rapid pace. Frustrated with the status of New York State. I see we're losing jobs every day in Rockland County. Property taxes are skyrocketing. And I said to myself, you know, I'm not going to wait for it to be someone else's responsibility to clean up the mess in Albany.
You ran against a guy who's pretty well known, actually. That's Scott Vanderhoff. He is the county executive of Rockland County, and he also ran for lieutenant governor unsuccessfully in 2006. He had much higher name recognition than you did in the whole district, that is. What was it, do you think, that actually turned this race?
Well, I think people really want to take Albany out of the dark ages and bring it into the 21st century. They saw that I was a stark contrast to my opponent, and I had so many volunteers from across the district in Orange County and Rockland County that really worked hard, knocked on doors, made phone calls, and told people about how important this race is. You know, we were concerned that there'd be so much apathy with all the things that, you know, you report on every night, you know, with the dysfunction in Albany, with the corruption that you see going on. We were worried that people would stay home. So we worked extra hard to bring people out to the polls, talking about my message of reforming the state Senate, about capping property taxes, and being aggressive to bring quality employers to the 38th Senate District.
You know, some people have speculated that because Scott Vanderhoff is in the county executive's office and he would have had to step down and give up that office, it actually played against him because, if I'm not mistaken, the local county legislature, which would be selecting his replacement, is Democratic controlled. And I think the Republicans felt a little strange about maybe giving that position up. Do you think that came into play?
Well, Liz, I think there were so many factors, but I think that could have been one of them. I think overwhelmingly it was, look, we had a county executive that's been in office for 17 years. And what I was pointing out is, you know, the same problems that we have in Albany are the problems we have in Rockland. You know, talking about budget reform, talking about campaign finance reform. These are issues that could have been tackled on a county level, never were. And I think people overwhelmingly said, look, you know, David Carlucci has been innovative in town government, has thought outside the box, has done things that haven't been done before. That's the type of leadership we need in Albany, and I think that's why people came to the polls and voted for me. You know, it's humbling and it's exciting, and I plan on working with the residents of our community to move New York in a new direction.
You know, here's the problem, though. We actually don't know who's in charge in the Senate, and when you speak of dysfunction, I mean, it's obvious that the dysfunction actually could continue to go quite some time, which I would expect must be rather disappointing for you.
Absolutely. I mean, look, these things aren't going to be solved overnight, and it's a long journey. But the longest journey starts with the first step. And that's why I say, you know, I can't do it alone. I'm going to need the people in my community, the residents throughout Rockland and Orange County to stand with me, to make the calls that are needed, to stand out and speak out when things aren't going the way they should. I'm excited that we have many new colleagues in the state Senate, and I look forward to working with many of them to bring forth a reform agenda. And the bottom line is what we need is a system, whereas if the people in their district don't feel that they're being represented, that they have the opportunity to vote legislators out of office.
Okay.
You know, for too long, it's been a system.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, clearly, I mean, this was actually an open seat. You had a veteran Republican, Tom Moorhan, who passed away, and an open seat is actually easier for an insurgent like yourself to make an inroad to. But you've called yourself an independent Democrat, so I'm curious, does that mean that you see yourself voting across the aisle with the Republicans when necessary, and will you support John Sampson for leader if the majority is in Democratic hands?
Look, I definitely consider myself an independent Democrat. I'm a Democrat at heart, But the reality is the issues that I talked about on this campaign have very little to do with Democratic or Republican principles. They have to do with common sense issues that relate to the residents in our district. You know, Rockland and Orange County, we have unique problems compared to the rest of the state. I know the rest of the state is really struggling with this economy, but right here in Rockland, we have a problem with the MTA. We have a value gap. We've got little representation on the MTA board. We've got a bridge that needs to be rebuilt, the Tappan Zee Bridge. We have jobs leaving our community in record numbers. Our largest private employer, Pfizer, is laying off 2,500 jobs. I mean, I can't tell you, every night I would knock on doors, I'd hear the same thing over and over again, whether it was working families or, you know, seniors getting squeezed out because of property taxes, or it was someone that had recently been laid off. And that's a real problem. You know, you can't talk about any other issues when people are worried about feeding their family and paying their bills.
Well, I understand.
So, look, the issues, I think...
I understand this. I'm just curious, though, and if you aren't in the majority, it's obviously going to be harder for you to address some of these issues because of the majority rules in the Senate. If the Senate's deadlocked, that's a whole different kettle of fish, which we could get into. But you'll be conferencing with the Democrats? Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, I will. I'm a Democrat. But I look forward to, you know, following in the footsteps of Tom Morahan. He was seen as being bipartisan. And I think what the electorate has said in this election, especially in Rockland and Orange County, where, you know, the trend across the country has been going Republican, they said, look, you know, we're going to vote for the person that we think will best represent us, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat. And if the issue is important to the residents in our district, I don't care if it's a Democratic issue or Republican issue, I look forward to working with my colleagues, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, to meet the issues that our constituents demand.
So you've talked about the MTA tax. You just brought it up. It was part of the bailout package that Albany voted for to bail out the MTA. The MTA tax, it's a payroll tax. It was supposed to generate revenue to help the MTA fill its budget hole, and it actually hasn't produced as much revenue as it was supposed to. So you have said that you'd vote to repeal it. How far would you be willing to go? I mean, that is something actually the Republicans, I think, are probably pretty keen on. Would you be willing to say, if it came down to it, hold up the budget to get the MTA tax repealed?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of hypothetical situations here. You know, I'd have to weigh what the consequences were, but it's something that I'm committed to. But I've said, look, I'm going to fight to repeal the MTA payroll tax, but that's not going to solve all our problems. That's one part of the issue. The issue is we have to look to reform the way that the MTA operates. We have to make them open up their books so they're transparent. We know where the money is being spent. I mean, how can we look for solutions when we don't know where this money goes? I mean, it seems like every other budget, you know, every year, we're going to have a new problem where the MTA is going to say, come out with their hands out and say, look, oh, we need more money. And how can we, in good conscience, vote for these things when we don't know where this money is going? And that's the problem that I have. And I'm going to push to make sure that Rockland and Orange counties has a say on the MTA board. You know, right now we have a quarter of a vote on the MTA board. That's something that we need reform on. We need representation because the people in our community are suffering with a lack of transportation options.
Let's get back to the leadership question. Will you be supporting John Sampson in the leadership? Because you've said, actually, during an interview with our Caitlin Ross, that you thought that it would be good to weaken the leadership slightly in the Senate.
Well, and what I mean by that is that I think we need a level playing field. You know, we got to get away from this spot where we have 3 men in a room. I don't think that's been in the interests of the public, and we need to, and that's what I say when I say weaken the leadership. I mean that we need to get the 3 men in the room out of that room into the sunlight and make sure that all these things are negotiated in the public, in the eye of the public. And as far as who the leadership is, I haven't made that decision yet. Look, I was just elected last week. It's a week ago today, so you know, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to think about. There's members that I'd like to meet with, and I haven't made any decisions yet.
Do you think, though, for example, the Senate Democrats spent some money on your race, if I'm not mistaken, and one of your colleagues, your soon-to-be colleagues, I should say, Dan Squadron from Brooklyn, helped you and came up and worked on your campaign. I think also you had a staffer from Diane Savino's office was helping you. So they were clearly very interested in getting you to Albany because, to be honest, this wasn't a race that they thought that they could win at the outset, and clearly you have. So you don't feel beholden to them in any way, the current leadership?
Oh, look, I'm going to vote for who I think will best represent the state of New York and serve the members in the conference and make sure that they're serving the people in the 38th Senate District. I mean, the only thing that I'm beholden to is the residents in Rockland and Orange County. I've prided myself in having a candidacy where I'm going to be unbought, unbossed, and that's what I plan on doing in Albany. I like the people in the Democratic Conference. I haven't made any decisions yet. There's a lot to think about, and I think it would be irresponsible for me to, say who I was voting for right now.
Well, Senator-elect David Carlucci, I want to thank you very much for joining us. It's going to be an interesting couple of months.
Yes, well, thanks so much for having me. I look forward to coming back really soon.